All right, let's kick it. Happy Sober Day, friends. Welcome to the Sobriety Diaries. My name is Nate, and I am a grateful recovering alcoholic. That may sound crazy to some of you, but I wouldn't be where I am and helping others without it. So for that, I am grateful. Again, you are listening to the Sobriety Diaries, where we talk to other recovering alcoholics and addicts. We hear their stories and try to help others who might still be struggling. Today, we are chatting with Kenny from Vancouver, Washington. Kenny, how are you today?
I'm great. Glad to be here, Nate.
Glad you're here. I appreciate your sort of candidness and openness today before we get started. But what made you decide to share your story with us today?
I'm also a grateful recovering alcoholic, and I like saying it like that because I am grateful. Um, I My story I wouldn't think is too different from other folks in our shoes, uh, but I'm a very open person. I like to post pictures on the internet of myself, kind of uh, as I journey along through this sobriety process, this process of recovery, and I've gotten a lot of feedback over the years, and so I think that's kind of what draws me to these places like your podcast. And I've been on a few of them, told my story, but it's people find it uplifting to hear other people's journey through recovery, because that's kind of what connects us all, is that we all share this ailment, um, of addiction, and it helps to be able to reach out to other people in recovery. So
It sure does. And I think the easiest way for me, at least, to get out of my own head and turn around a bad day is to help someone else. And I think if we can do that for just one person here today, uh, I'd say our job is done. So
couldn't
uh,
agree more.
yeah, with that being said, let's open the diary on Kenny. The floor is all yours, my friend.
All right. Well, I'm from a suburb of Portland, Oregon. I'm 39 years old. I'm a railroad engineer. That's what I do for work. And I started drinking when I was in high school, maybe a little peer pressure. I kind of had to choke it down in the beginning. Didn't much care for the taste, but I certainly cared for the effect. Loved me some, alcohol, however I could get it. And I never really had a problem with it until I was in my late 20s. I used to be obese. I was about 340 pounds, and I had gastric bypass surgery where they rearrange your stomach, and they bypass several stages of your intestine. And so I had drank a lot up until that point, but I think that body weight really protected me from the effects of alcohol, because I really could take it or leave it basically up until then. So after I had gastric bypass, that body weight started slowly coming off of me. Actually, it rapidly started coming off of me. And that rapid switch, where I was once obese and then I was a healthy weight, that body weight really wasn't there to kind of hold back the effects of alcohol. So I would get much more drunk off of far fewer drinks. And it would also bypass my digestive process. So it's basically dumping undigested alcohol directly into your small intestine. So that was kind of like a 1-2 punch. And to put a cherry on top, I have alcoholism in my family. My grandfather was a very abusive alcoholic, and I'm much like him. I mean, I can actually hold up side by side pictures of me and him, and I realized that I'm a lot like him. So even if it hadn't been for those things, I believe that I am a genetic alcoholic. Um, so it would have happened one way or the other eventually in my life, I think. It's just that it was exacerbated by the gastric bypass surgery. So once the weight came off and the alcohol really started hitting me hard, I started realizing that it was a problem. And I told my wife, I want to quit drinking for a while. And I would quit drinking for a few weeks or for a month, and then I'd be like, I pretty much got this licked. I'm gonna drink again.
Right.
And so that started a several year process of I'm not drinking, I am drinking, I'm not drinking. One time I stayed sober for 14 months on my own. And uh, I really did believe that I could handle it. I could control it on my own. And I read some books, I read some literature, and looked at some websites, and I thought, yeah, I basically got this. And I I think I spent about 3 or 4 years really, really declining badly, where I would go through bouts of extreme drunkenness. And um, when I finally told my wife I wanted to quit drinking for real, I felt like I couldn't go back in front of her and drink. I couldn't
Mm,
I couldn't go back and say I'm going to drink again.
right.
So I took my drinking underground when I reversed myself. When I said I want to stop. So in her mind, I had stopped, but then I took it. I was drinking in private. I was drinking in the garage. I was
Yeah.
drinking in the walk-in pantry. I drink anywhere I could, in my car, and it became a way of life. And in the end, I was blacking out 3 or 4 times a week, and I would drink 12 to 24 drinks a day. I drank a
Mm,
lot, and um, so I was on vacation in November of 2016, and just a stay-at-home vacation. And I bought a case of my favorite beer, and I was going to ration it out, 3 or 4 beers a night, nice little nightcap.
as we
And
do.
every day of my vacation, I have 3 or 4 beers, whatever, 3 beers this day, 4 beers that day. I had big plans, and so I put my son to bed at about 8 o'clock at night, and then at 11 o'clock, I had drank 19
Mm,
of those 24 beers. And something inside me said, Kenny, your life is no longer manageable. And I didn't use those words, but that was the way I felt.
mhm.
So I did the only thing that I knew how to do, and that was reach out to somebody who I knew was in recovery. And I texted her, it was my friend's wife, and I said, I need help. I need you to come and get me and take me to a meeting. And because I knew she was going to meetings. And she said, I will be there. And so the next morning, she picked me up, took me to my first meeting, a 12 step, and I knew from the moment I set foot in that meeting that that was where I belonged. They had a sign on the wall that said, "You never ever have to be alone again."
Mm,
I was like, God, how
mm.
did you people know how alone I was? I mean, like,
My
this
people.
was tailor made for me. Yeah, my
Yeah.
people, and
Yeah.
they are. Uh, and I was a little resistant at first. I mean, I thought maybe the ideas were a little radical, but honestly, I was so ready to quit drinking. If they told me to go out in the parking lot and wash all their cars, I would have, if that was what it took.
Same. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I tried everything. I tried everything to stop drinking on my own, and that's why I know that something like this works for me, is because I've tried everything else. I've tried I haven't taken like pills to quit drinking, which apparently there's something that you can do to,
That's what I
like,
hear. Yeah.
it switches off the joy receptors in your brain,
Right.
and you
Right.
can't feel joy anymore. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound like anything I want to experience. So,
Yeah.
but I know what works. I know what works for me, and 12 step was it. So I came home from my first 12 step meeting, and I looked in the mirror, and I looked like an absolutely sack of dirt. I mean, I looked real bad. And I thought, they gave me a coin, 24 hours sober. And I thought, I'm going to take a picture of myself just so I remember how bad I felt, how bad I looked. And I
Mm,
snapped a selfie in the mirror. And then 30 days later, I mean, the most hellish 30 days, of my life, uh,
I feel you.
the longest 30 days of my life later, they gave me that 30-day coin. I mean, like I won a marathon, like hanging a medal around my neck. I got that 30-day coin in my hand. And I went home, and I was like, that guy looks different. That guy in the mirror
Mm,
looks different to me. And so I took another selfie, and I looked at him side by side, and I was like, this guy looks way different. I'm like, I feel better. I look better. And so I started showing people, and they're like, oh yeah, you're not drinking again. Oh yeah, big change, buddy. I mean, nobody was nobody was that excited for me.
right.
So I just kind of kept it on the DL for a while, and 60 days took a picture, 90 days took a picture, and I kept taking a picture every time I got a coin. It was just a little personal tradition. And after a year, I took a picture and I thought, wow, now there is a complete 180 transformation. And it was real. I felt it was real because I had gone through all 12 steps by that point. I had cleaned house and I had made amends. I'd done everything that I was told to do. I had a sponsor.
Yeah.
And I got a sponsor right off the bat. And so I thought, I'm gonna put this out there and see what people think. And so I posted a side by side on Reddit, and I called it the progression of sobriety is what I called it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 24 hours versus 1 year, one day at a time. That's just all I wrote, and it just blew up. It was huge, and I got lots of comments, and I'm an alcoholic. I love attention.
We love that.
So, I'm like, hey, this is great.
Right.
Wow. Everybody's telling me I'm great. And I'm like, wow, this pays off. I cannot deny I am selfish and self-centered by nature. And I'm a ham. So, well, a couple of days later, it was all over and it just died down. Now, my second year, took another picture, put it on the internet, and I put it on Reddit. And I just put it in a little tiny corner of Reddit on the alcoholism subreddit, which is pretty small.
That is a small one.
Yeah. And so 24 hours versus 2 years, one day at a time. And it took me like a week to look through all the comments and people like tagging each other so they could see it. And I was like, hey, this is great. People are responding well to this. It's giving people hope.
Right.
But then after, that was it. It just kind of went away. Well, after the third year, I got a message from boardpanda.com. They saw the Reddit post and they go, hey, we'd like to write an article about this. And I was like, all right, man, cool. You wrote an article.
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, it is on every clickbait website that just out there ones, and then it was the same with the fourth year. And I did a follow-up with boardpanda.com. And so that's kind of been my little tradition, is that every time I get a coin, I post it on the internet. Well, one thing that I started doing a couple of years into my recovery was I started doing DDP yoga. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but
no.
Diamond Dallas Page, he's a 3-time world champion professional wrestler, started a yoga program, and I loved it. And so I also went through this physical transformation doing DDP yoga. And so I was wearing that shirt in my 3-year picture. And so that all of a sudden kind of catapulted me up in the DDP yoga community and got Dallas's attention.
Wow.
And so now that's like, a significant portion of my time is spent in the DDPY community. And shout out to the Better Hit the Mat podcast. I'm a contributor for them.
Oh, nice.
I'm what they call an infield correspondent now.
Nice.
And but it's a lot of fun, and it's very complementary, I've found, to a program of recovery, because it mirrors a lot of the principles that I practice in 12-step, and but it's been a lot of fun, and I feel like I have a responsibility to maintain my own recovery and to do well and to do what I'm told. I can't allow myself to get bigger than my recovery. My recovery comes first.
Right.
And and I don't ever talk about any of this stuff in meetings. That's the funny thing, is like, when somebody I know in a meeting randomly discovers it on the internet, they're like, what the heck is this? Why didn't, like, I never talk about this in meetings.
Right.
Hey, how great am I,
Check
guys? And this is more for the layman, and it's also more for recovery to be attractive to people who are on the fence about it.
Yeah.
Because I was on the fence for a long time, and so many people have reached out to me through direct message on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and asked me for help. Like, what do I do? I feel like I drank the same way. I feel like I did the same stuff. What do I do? What can I do? And from all over the world, not just in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's a big responsibility that we have as people living in recovery, is to be there like somebody else was there for us.
Exactly.
The people who jumped in, who swooped in and saved my life, they did it completely selflessly. And
right.
And for that, I'm responsible too.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think as those of us who work a 12-step program, as part of step 12, I mean, that looks different than it did 50, 60 years ago, when you were 12 stepping, as some of our elders did. It looks a little bit different, and we can use these new formats in this digital platform and, um, different ways of doing that now. And I think that this platform sort of lends itself to be able to do that and to, um, put ourselves out there and help others, in a way that perhaps, folks couldn't before. So, I agree
Hmm.
with that. I love that you said that. And I think, particularly in this last year with the pandemic and such a huge chunk of our meetings, sort of moving to this platform, um, we sort of had to keep up if we wanted to still make our meetings and still interact with other alcoholics. So for me, especially, it's been a huge sort of shift in my recovery in the way that I sort of focus on things. But I love it.
Yeah. I sponsor a guy actually who just got a year a couple of weeks ago, and he did his entire first year online.
Wow. Kudos to those folks who have gotten sober for the first time over the last year.
Oh yeah.
And just being able to do that without, I'm a hugger, without like the hugs and the interaction and, that sort of visceral interaction that you get at a meeting. Kudos to those people.
It's up to us. It's up to the members now who had everything given to us basically on a silver platter
Right.
to be there for the people who don't have the tools that we had. So, and it's exciting too. It gives us a usefulness that we just didn't have. I
Right.
mean, I love the fact that I can be helpful and useful in this new life, because before, all I said all the time when I was drinking is, I said, I wish I could have my life back. I just want my life back.
Mm.
And that was what I said in my first meeting. I want my life back. And they didn't give me that. They gave me a whole new one. And there are fixtures in my life that resemble the old one, like my son and my wife, and uh, they're still there, but everything else is completely different because I've changed.
Right.
And I like to say evolve. I've evolved
I
in
love that.
recovery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We all share this you know common problem, and um, being able to be in a community of people who are like-minded like that, I think, is helpful.
So I found it interesting. Um, a lot of alcoholics that I talked to were sort of prompted or nudged to seek recovery. And based on your story, it sort of sounded like you were to the point where you told your wife that you wanted to seek recovery, and that you sort of, I think, knew that, something had to change. Myself, I was going kicking and screaming, and my family sort of, ultimately kind of gave me an ultimatum, but it sounded like you were seeking recovery, which I think is unique and amazing. But what did you feel inside that knew sort of that it was just the end?
Well, I knew I didn't want to be drunk, but I didn't know how to stop at one or two. And it was really confusing to me. I would stand in the bathroom. You go to the bathroom a lot. You spend a lot of time in the bathroom when you're an alcoholic. And I'd just stare at myself in the mirror, and I did not want to be like that. And I'd say, "How did you get this way? How did you get drunk?
Mm,
You only meant to have a beer." I just, like, this doesn't make any sense. Why? And every night, like, didn't you remember last night, the night before that? I don't
mm,
understand what the problem is. I didn't get it. I didn't understand that I had this uncontrollable desire to get drunk. And so I knew I wanted to stop, but I was afraid. There was so much fear in knowing that in order to stop drinking, you had to stop drinking. I wanted that feeling, that sense of ease and comfort that comes at once by taking a few drinks. drinks you see other people taking with impunity. And that thing drove me bananas that people could just have a drink. Like my wife, she'll order a margarita and she'll take like 3 sips and be done. And she'll just leave it there at a
It's foreign.
restaurant.
It's foreign to me.
Like
I don't
you
get
have
it.
a problem. You're not drink. I
Yeah.
paid a lot of money for that, like that's a problem.
Right.
And it's I'm flabbergasted by that kind of behavior, that somebody can use alcohol safely or responsibly. That is I can't even wrap my own head around having one beer. Like I don't understand, where's the
Nope.
other 23 beers going to come
Right.
from? That doesn't, that doesn't compute.
I've never had a beer in my life. It's
Oh yeah,
10, it's 8, it's 12, it's 24. I don't think that I've ever had one beer.
sure. And there would have had to have been something that physically took me out of that situation
Yeah.
to have one beer, like the building caught fire or
Right.
something. Like maybe, oh, I only got one beer before the building burned down. Like
Right.
that's really the only situation that would have, but um, no, people, my wife talked to me about quitting drinking a few times when I was in the depths of having the problem. But it was mostly this incomprehensible demoralization, this humiliating situations I would get myself into.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't like that. I knew I didn't want to be like that. I didn't want to be that guy. And I looked down on people who behaved like that. And I,
Mm.
kind of lumped myself into them. I mean, now I have more in common with those people than I ever thought I would.
Right.
But I knew that wasn't for me, but I didn't know how to stop.
Hmm.
So it definitely wasn't kicking and screaming when it came to quitting. But I was very fearful to finally admit that I needed help and I wanted to stop. Just because um, it was a lot like a bad relationship. It's like
Oh
a
yeah.
person has every reason to everyone outside looking in
Right.
that they should not be in this relationship, and you don't understand why they would stay with this horrible, horrible person. That's exactly the way it was with alcohol.
So true.
Like I was just detached. I was
Yeah.
obsessed.
I can
Yeah.
relate to that so much. Alcohol, I love you so much. I'm so obsessed with you. Why do you treat me so bad? Why do you do this to me? I can relate to that 100%.
And you know what? Honestly, maybe it was just uh, that I was so drunk that I just did something crazy and then I stuck to it. Like, oh,
Mm,
well, I'm committed now because I asked somebody to come and physically pick me up.
whatever gets
That
us
might have been
there.
it. I found a video that I made on my phone that night. And
Mm,
I was talking to my phone saying how much I wanted to quit drinking. And I don't have any memory of
wow.
making the video. And it was very powerful because I'm agnostic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and which means that it means I don't believe in well, agnostic means without knowledge. Like I don't have enough knowledge to
Right.
firmly believe in any specific deity, but I pray and I say God and I refer to God. Um, but when I made this video, I was begging God to take away my alcoholism.
Mm,
And I was earnest too. I was looking at that phone saying, please God, take this away from me. And maybe it was
mm,
just a foxhole religion sort of thing, but the desperation in my eyes, it's sad. I mean,
mm.
my face was all swelled
Yeah.
up uh, and it was pathetic, but it was true. I was ready to believe in anything if it meant I didn't have to drink another day in my life.
You mentioned that you sponsor some folks. What else do you do to give back and help the next struggling alcoholic or addict?
Well, I go to meetings, although I haven't gone to a lot of meetings lately because we've been moving.
Yeah.
Um, but I like to, I like to go on Reddit and I do posts about my sobriety, about my
Yeah.
recovery. And when people reach out to me, I definitely take the time to help point them in the right direction. And I tell people this is what worked for me. And a lot of people aren't really quite ready uh, who reach out to me for 12 step, but some of them
Mm,
are, and some of them are still sober today, which is very gratifying, that knowing that the time that I took was meaningful, that it
Yeah.
actually did help people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's like sometimes the simplest things can be the most fulfilling.
yeah, and it's important, it's like that was so much fun. When I went to my first like Thanksgiving dinner, boy, what a good time that was.
Mm,
And I'm all just high on coffee. I drank
right.
so much coffee. I was so heavily caffeinated, and everybody was just having a good time and clinking their coffee mugs, and um it was I really was home. Like I never really thought that I could have a good time without alcohol. I never believed that. And the best times I've had in my life were without alcohol. And I
Hmm.
mean, I train like an athlete now. It's like I want to go out and do things. I want to go out and climb mountains, and there's so many exciting things that I want to do right now. And before, all I wanted to do was get on the couch and be drunk. That's
Amen.
that's it. So
Yeah, your transition that sort of highlighted in those articles is amazing, and I will link some information so folks can sort of see what we're talking about. But it's quite the transformation. So show that off,
it
buddy.
is. I'm having trouble believing it myself.
Yeah,
This is it's the life I always wanted to live,
yeah.
where I was actually doing meaningful things in my life. And uh, when I had my 10-year high school reunion, and I went around and hey, what are you doing now? And everybody'd say, just working, just
Mhm.
working, just
Yeah.
working. And I was like, man, when my 20 year comes up, I want to be like, I'm doing this, 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 and this,
Yes.
and I'm excited about this, and like, that's what we need to be doing. and
Right.
and that's the life I live now. So, and I got an extra year because my 20-year reunion got canceled last year. So,
Same happened with me. I think I'll be 39 next week.
yeah,
So we're kind of on the same path here, Kenny.
yeah, I'm just so pumped. I'm like, look at all these great things that's happening. I can't wait to tell people.
A world of
I mean, I'm sure they
opportunity.
all know because we have Facebook now, but
Right.
yeah, I've probably heard the story a few times.
Let me ask you about the gastric bypass. Fairly often I hear of addicts who um, perhaps transition one addiction for another one. And I've heard of folks who have gastric bypass and perhaps get sober, but then gain the weight back, or alcoholics who turn to gambling, or, transitioning one addiction for the next. Do you see a correlation in um, perhaps overeating, or what led to you being obese and then that transitioning into your alcoholism?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Uh, I always had a problem with eating growing up. I was an obese child. I got bullied a lot too. And I always fell back on food. Food was always what brought me comfort until I discovered alcohol. And then
Yeah.
it was food and alcohol. Um, once the food went away, then it was just the alcohol. But I definitely struggled over the years since having the gastric bypass, and the alcohol ballooned me up. Living near Portland, Oregon, this is like the mecca of craft beer. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody's got beards and flannel shirts, and
Right.
everybody's got the craft beer with the foam on the top. And I'm like, well, hey, I'm living here. I got to do
Yeah.
this too. And when so I was that was the kind of beer I drank, and it's like double the calories. And so I gained like 50 pounds. And so I think when I quit drinking, I was about 230 pounds. I kept a big coffee mug of peanut M&Ms on my
Yum.
nightstand, and just a
Yeah.
big scoop out of that. And it helped. It really helped. But then I was like, I gained 20 pounds in just a few months, and I said to myself, well, this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And uh, I just kind of made a decision. What I did is I used the steps. I admitted I had a problem with my
Yeah.
weight, and I made a decision. And then I laid out a practical program of action, and I undertook it one day at a time. And I would not have been able to do that on my own if it hadn't been for going through the 12 steps, going through
Mm.
it with a sponsor. And so yeah, eating certainly is another addiction for me. It's not as powerful in my uh, my mind as the alcoholism was, but it's definitely a daily fixture. And I eat pretty healthy now. I eat pretty cleanly, but that takes a lot of discipline.
Sure.
And it's I don't I don't really I don't really equate my stopping drinking and staying sober with discipline. Um, but the eating definitely takes discipline. I always heard of addictive personalities,
Yeah.
and I never really liked that term because I thought it was kind of like an easy crutch to use. But there
Right.
is a lot of truth to, addicts are addicts,
Sure.
and we do like to get addicted to things, things that we like. I like things that make me happy,
Right.
and there are some things that make you very, very, very happy, and some things are like, yeah, this is good. But alcohol is one of those things that makes me very happy, and
Mhm.
food, those things excite my mind.
Thanks so much for listening today, friends. Huge thank you to Kenny for being so open and honest. Hopefully, you heard something that resonates. And if we help just one person, our job is done. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at the Sobriety Diaries, youtube.com/Nate Kelly, where we upload today's video podcast, or you can drop us a line at the Sobriety Diaries pod at gmail.com. Check back soon for new episodes with new stories to tell, but until then, try your best not to drink and be good to yourselves. Bye, friends.